Well, first off, thank you everyone for giving up half an hour or so of your valuable time. I guess it's my responsibility to see if I can make it as valuable as I possibly can. There's different people on this call. We've got some CEOs, we've got some sales directors, sales managers, sales people. So I'm going to try and tailor this as best I can to address all of the audiences. I've got a couple of slides here, just 4 or 5, nothing in too much detail. I'll have a good chat with you about some of the content around sales success metrics. You know, there's so many out there today. What's important? Give you my view of the world and what I think is some of the stuff that you should consider measuring if you're not already. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, we'll open it up to a Q&A. And if there's anything that's a bit more complex, I'd like to offer a complimentary online meeting with anyone who would like to do a bit more of a deeper dive around anything, not just on metrics, but anything, all things sales. So I guess first off, a bit of data. Of course, my screen's not working now. Just bear with me. That's better. Right. So a piece of research recently from Salesforce, which may or may not come as a surprise for some of you, but the figure was 57% of salespeople today are challenged in meeting their quota. And, you know, when you talk about, you know, sales representatives meeting their sales quota, it's really what makes the world go round, I guess. And for every business owner and every sales leader alike, I guess if revenues aren't growing, in my view, on a month-to-month basis, and you don't have a highly productive sales team, your company, you know, it simply isn't running as a well-oiled machine as it should. But unfortunately, as many of you on this call know, that's not always the case. So what do we actually do if sales reps, or some of your sales reps, may be among some of the 57% who aren't meeting their quotas? Obviously, in a really increasing competitive marketplace, it's not just going to fly, let alone be sustainable. So this is really what today's Lunch and Learn is about. This is really where sales metrics kick in. And in terms of sales metrics, I guess to see if we can all get onto the same page, everyone's got a view of the world and what they actually mean. But for me, sales metrics actually help you measure the performance of your business's sales efforts. That's it in a nutshell. Now, whether you're developing, potentially might be a new lead generation campaign, we're trying to improve an ROI, you're trying to develop sales representatives, the days of just relying on intuition and gut feel anymore in 2022 just aren't enough. So what sales performance metrics actually do is that they'll really help you determine whether your sales team are actually hitting the right targets. And importantly, as sales leaders, it's really going to give you an insight as to why they are, or importantly, why they're not. Sales metrics for some businesses are simply known as KPIs. Other businesses separate them, but a KPI obviously is a key performance indicator. And these data points measure the performance of your sales team and obviously individual salespeople. And I'll have a bit to say about that in a bit more detail about team goals and individual goals later on in 5 or so minutes. Sales metrics really are used to set future goals, spot areas of weakness. What else do they do? They can design incentive plans. They can calculate commissions. How do we reward people? All of these data points can be used for driving performance within sales teams. Some sales metrics, I don't want to get too complex here, but I'm looking at the maturity of the audience on this Lunch and Learn. I'm pretty confident you've all heard of the term a lag indicator and a lead indicator, not just in business, but I speak specifically in sales. And recapping, a lag indicator really shows what your salespeople have already accomplished. So lag, past. A lead indicator are the indicators that show how likely your salespeople are to accomplish something in the future or on terms of what they're doing now. Now, typically lag indicators include metrics like sales revenue or sales by lead source. This is really, really important metrics that we need to understand. A lead indicator, don't want to confuse you here, are based on what your team is actually doing at the present. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a bit more of a deeper dive and really understand what are some of the key points that need to be measured. We've all heard this famous quote from Peter Drucker. I think it was back in 1950 or 1960. And it actually, obviously, it says, whatever gets measured gets managed. But what does it kind of really mean? I've done a bit of sort of reading around this, and if you really peel the onion back on it, what it actually means, in my view, is that yes, regular management and whatever gets managed gets done. But I actually think it gives leaders an opportunity. If you can measure something and you can feed it back to salespeople, I really think that that's going to be a more engaging thing. Secondly, on top of what gets managed gets done, if we feed it back, that will get done well. But also, I think it will understand or help us understand what we can reward, and therefore gets repeated. So what gets managed, if we've got good metrics in place, that will get done. If we feed it back on an individual basis or team basis, depending on your business, that will get done well. And importantly, if we can do that and reward it, it will get repeated. So it's pretty important in terms of building sustainability into your sales department. What I would like to do now is talk to you about 9 key indicators, and there are scores of these, particularly around, not just in business, but around sales, scores and scores of metrics that you can measure. But for this short lunch and learn, I'm going to focus on just 9. And as I said before, based on the maturity of your salespeople, based on your own business model, based on your own culture, there's lots of things that you might like to consider, but this, in my view, are the most important. Now, first up, as you can see, there is customer satisfaction. What I'd like to say about that is most businesses today do measure this in some form. Absolutely no doubt about that. But measuring customer satisfaction is so important for growth, as it provides really, really clever insights into what's actually working, and it offers opportunities for optimization. Customer satisfaction is essential, in my view, for improving customer loyalty. And I'll have a bit more to say about that in a couple of minutes' time when we talk about NPS or Net Promoter Score. But customer satisfaction, to me, is a measurement of basically how happy your customers are with you, your company, your service, or your products. It should come as no surprise that 69% of your customers, 69% of Salesmasters customers, 69% of all customers will leave you or I for one reason, and that is indifference. And what I mean by that is that it's not that we as a business actually did anything measurably or even particularly wrong. It's just that we never really gave people a reason to stay. So having a metric around customer satisfaction is profoundly important. Next up is what I call team target or team quota, and is it a team quota or team target met? And there's no surprises on this one. Everyone on this call obviously set some, I would assume, would set some sort of a revenue or a team target. And basically that's the sales goal, or what I'd call the target or the number that is established for the entire sales team. Now, these targets can be set around the product. You can set it around what else, service. You can set it around market segment. You can set it around region, again, depending on your offer and what you're trying to achieve. But whichever definition you use, your sales targets need to be very, very specific and very, very realistic. Now, normally, not always, but normally this target needs to be achieved within a certain time period. So we've got a target, product, service, region, whatever the case may be, and something needs to be achieved within a particular time frame. Now, that could be a daily, a weekly, a monthly, a quarterly, yearly, whatever the target may be. And from Salesmasters' perspective, we have many businesses, obviously, that have both a team target, which is communicated with the entire sales team across the broader business, but they also break down that responsibility of achieving that sales target on an individual basis, which is the third metric or KPI that I would like you to focus on or consider, which is the individual quota. Is it met? So this is nothing more than an individual sales target set specifically for one particular sales representative. They're usually used to, I guess, help in performance or to boost motivation. They're typically individual sales targets that are rewarded in some form, either on a monthly or a quarterly or a yearly basis. Again, these goals are almost always achieved within a certain time frame. and they typically have absolute clarity around the number of products and services required to be sold. So this is more detailed. Typically the team is more, it can have numbers around it, volume around it, but typically it's more revenue based. But on the individual targets, if you're particularly in a B2B product scenario, they will definitely have a set of numbers around not just products and services, but what sort of revenue typically needs to be required or achieved, and also the GP. And it may also contain, I guess, some sort of an account management or new business development metric as well. So what I mean by that, we've got a monthly target as an example. We've got a certain number of products or services or offers, whatever it may be. We've got a revenue target, we've got a GP target, but many businesses, depending on what they're trying to achieve strategically, they may break that KPI into farming activities, which is account management, and then also new business development activities. So again, a really, really important metric. Next up is what have we got? Customer retention and attrition. Okay. What's customer retention? The customer retention rate is really the percentage of your customers that you retain over a certain period of time. It's the attrition rate is the percentage of customers who have not been replaced by new customers, or what they call churn. So in a sense, customer retention is the opposite of customer attrition. Now, in absence of knowing and understanding this sales metric, you are forfeiting, in my view, the ability to actually ensure that your existing customers continue to generate revenue from them. As I mentioned just a couple of moments ago, 69% of your and my customers will leave us through indifference. So it's really important to give them a reason to stay. I said to a client just a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, that said he was talking about retention and attrition. They were experiencing, particularly with COVID, lots of businesses have just reset the dynamic of who they do business with. They're looking for a much higher and more what I call commercially intimate level of connection with their suppliers and providers. And I said to this particular business owner, I said, well, when was the last time, you had 11 or 12 salespeople, I said, when was the last time that you pulled out a thank you card, not you, or your, yes, you, but also your team, and just wrote in a handwritten card, just a very quick thank you to your customers? I'm sitting here in my office, Jack, and your name came across my table, and I just wanted to pen out a very quick thank you for your business. It's valued, and I just wanted to put my thoughts in writing. Trust things are well, and we'll catch up again soon. Kind regards, Peter. Off it goes, handwritten, and then put the date on it, put your business card in it. Don't get it all branded up. Just you can get some recycled paper, whatever floats your boat. And just post it out to all of these influencers, stakeholders, and decision makers of your current existing database. People want to feel that they're valued, and just dropping an email, which is so easy in 2022, in my view, isn't enough. And if you just really unpack that, the period of time it takes is about 60 to 90 seconds to write a 2 or 3 sentence handwritten thank you card. The investment is about $1. And if you had you or your team said, I'm not going to do much, but I'm going to do 10 a week as an example, that's 45 or best part of 50 a month on a 4.2 week average. You know, within 10 months, you've got 500 people. That's how you build a reputation. That's how you build a repeat and referral strategy. So that might be something you might like to consider. We talk about conversion rate. This is a really, really well-known metric or KPI amongst most sales businesses, and it's a profoundly important one. But sadly, many businesses, in my experience, tend to underestimate it. Really, what a sales conversion rate metric actually measures is the effectiveness of you or your sales team to convert a lead into a new customer. It is as simple as that. Opportunity rises, we put it through a pipeline, which I'll talk about in just a couple of minutes, and we convert it. What is the metric or the ratio of what it takes for your business to convert? And it's a really critical metric for aligning your sales and marketing teams as well. In my view, I think both of these teams, both your sales department, whether it's internal or external, and your, your marketing department, whether it's internal or external, or your sales department, those two people in 2022 need to be hand in glove. And if you can start getting your marketing team to convert, to supply better targeted leads, which I'll talk about in about 60 or 90 seconds, you're going to get a much better ROI back to the business. I also think that the conversion rate is really important to understand, as you can very quickly identify the percentage of potential and existing buyers that move from one stage of the sales pipeline to the next one. Just wondering if we can make sure our microphones are off, guys. Thanks very much. It's the sales pipeline. What I mean by that, what I'm trying to say is that if you look at your conversion rate and you don't know within the pipeline where it is sticky or it's blocked, it's a problem. I'll just tell you a quick story. We had a client come to us recently and they're saying, I've got this really, really top performing salesperson. This person represents, a high percentage, 25, 30% of our revenue. There's 14 on the team. There's a risk to the business. What do we do? So what we do at Salesmasters, we do what's called data extraction. And what that means is almost every one of you on this call would be an SME. What I mean by that is a subject matter expert. You possess profound amounts of knowledge and experience. And typically in an SME, in a small to medium sized enterprise, that knowledge is very rarely transferred effectively. So what we do is we've put together a process where we do a data extraction from the SME, the subject matter expert, and we put it into a format that can be scalable and duplicative. You can scale it and duplicate it for other salespeople. And why that is relevant here is because it unpacks or unblocks all facets of the pipeline. Because suddenly someone says, goodness me, you do that. Yeah, of course I do that. Well, what else would you do? It's all of this kind of known nuances that you or I just do it. If we can get that out and transfer that to others on the team, is profoundly valuable. So conversion rates are very, very important. Activity metrics, no surprise on that one. It's the next KPI, and it's really important to strongly consider. I mentioned just a moment ago that what gets measured gets done. And in my view, there is no doubt that sales is a contact sport. If you really unpack the sales process, it requires salespeople to reach out to potential opportunities or prospects on a regular basis. That is the lane that we bowl in. And in my view, and I'm sure there'll be others that would have a contrary view, but in my view, I think that email has really created a massive amount of negative behavior across many salespeople, particularly in the B2B sector. I think people talk about B2C, they talk about B2B, they talk about B2G. For me, it's about H to H, it's human to human. And email has a fantastic and a profoundly important role to play in business today. But the amount of businesses that I go into today, it's just all email, almost all email. And I'm just going to flag this for another lunch and learn session. But video, if you're not aware, is becoming more and more, is moving its way more and more to the front in terms of communication. Short, sharp, rich pieces of content that can be transferred in a very, very timely manner is important. I guess what I'm saying is that when I say sales is a contact sport, having activity metrics, not just about the number of emails that you sent, but the number of telephone calls that we attempted, the number of speaks. So you can make a telephone call, but to me, the metric that needs to be measured is the number of speaks. And a speak to me is someone who is an influencer or a stakeholder or a decision maker in the process. And so if we can be engaging with more of these people, online meetings, profoundly important. I've mentioned in a previous lunch and learn, or maybe on one of my podcasts, I said that in January 2020, this just blew me out, so I'll just share it with you. In January 2020, there were 20 million online meetings conducted globally daily. So 20 million per day globally around the world in January 2020. In January 2022, what's that, 8 months ago, when the same company, and I think it was Zoom, you just Google, you'll find this. In January 22, there were 600 million online meetings conducted daily globally. And the forecasts for January 23 is 1 billion online meetings conducted daily. So why is that relevant to you and me? The world has moved on in terms of how it communicates. And this H to H, this human interaction, the nuances, and it will never ever replace belly to belly, in my view. But I think online is a richer experience than certainly a telephone call, and profoundly more engaging than an email. So have some activity metrics to make sure that you and or your team are engaging. I'll tell you a really, really quick story. We've got a client in Sydney, and pre-COVID, they had a KPI. They had big fun of 5 sales reps, and they were in the marketing or advertising space, actually. And they were out and about 4 days a week. They had a KPI of doing 5 appointments face-to-face per day. And they were out, they had a car, fuel, database, and away they go, set their appointments and what have you. So I went down and did a complete audit in that business before COVID. And I just said, in my view, I think everything is going to be moving. This is before COVID. The online meeting is going to be playing a far more significant role in our sales endeavors than ever before moving forward. Bottom line is that company now, they had a KPI of 5 face-to-face appointments 4 days a week. They now have a KPI, the sales team, there's 9 on the team now, and they're smashing out 21, what we call initial engagement calls, 10 minutes only per day. So they're having 210 minutes online, which is 3 hours per day, face-to-face with clients. And that business has just profoundly changed. You would never, ever get that. So I'm not saying that everything needs to move online. What I am saying is that activity metrics matter. And if you don't have them, you're potentially going to get left behind. Just moving on to customer lifetime value. Look, the CLV is simply a measure of a customer's revenue generated over the entire relationship of a business. And if you can understand that, like, if you know what a customer is actually bringing, or a particular persona of a customer is actually bringing, and you can relate that to your marketing team, whether it's an internal team or it's an external team, you'll find the right balance. In other words, this type of customer based on lifetime value is not our ideal, but this type of customer is. So it's about really understanding the customer lifetime of your value and making sure that your marketing team is seeking out those types of opportunities and acquiring those types of people. What we don't want them to do is to acquire people with a lower value, because we just don't want leads. What we want is the right type of lead. Couple to go, pipeline accuracy. Look, all I want to say about that, for me, pipeline accuracy is profoundly important. I think it actually, in my view, represents 99% of why a business really is enjoying a great win rate or not. To me, it's the lifeline of the company. And if you really want to predict if a business will meet its numbers, you really need to look no further than the pipeline, right? Well, here's what I've got to say about that. So many businesses I go into, I look at the pipeline, and then I look at win rates and other metrics, and the pipeline is inflated, and it's inflated, and it's been populated by salespeople who simply have put in poorly qualified opportunities. And I would acknowledge the business leaders on this call and the sales directors on this call that you talk to your sales team about the importance of having accuracy so you can forecast, finitely. As I said, the number of pipelines out there that are inflated, that deals don't close, is only or almost only due to poor qualification. So again, I guess that just leads me to before I talk about NPS finally, make sure you've got a very good qualification criteria. If it goes in the pipeline, what I mean, have they been BANT, B-N-A-T, or whatever model you use? Have they been BANT qualified? Budget, need, authority, time frame, whatever the case may be, make sure that that criteria is met. So when it goes into the pipeline and it steps its way through the pipeline towards closure, that you have accuracy. And finally, as I said, is the NPS, which is a really common one, or the Net Promoter Score. I guess a bit like pipeline accuracy, many businesses aren't really tracking this metric. And I kind of get it, but in 2022, I wanted to bring it front of mind. It's absolutely critical that you measure how loyal your customers are, in my view. And loyalty to me is defined in one measure only, and that is how likely someone would be to promote or to recommend you or your business, your product or service, to a colleague or a friend or someone else. That's the measure of it. And that's called the Net Promoter Score. It's nothing more than finding out what is the truth of their journey with you. So as an example, if you survey, and you can just Google this, just Google NPS, and it's one question. That's it. It's not a big survey they've got to find out or engage with, and it's broken up into 3 very simple answers. If you surveyed 100 customers, you'll get a result made up of a promoter. So on a score of 1 to 10, how likely would it be that you would recommend Salesmasters to a colleague, or the products and services Salesmasters offer to a colleague or friend? 9s and 10s are what they call promoters, and they are the ones that are very, very likely to promote. The 7s and 8s are what we call the passives. Again, I had pretty good experience with Salesmasters, but nothing that was so memorable, or nothing that was so memorable that I'd actually promote them, but I was comfortable with them. They're called passives. And anyone that rates you on a 1 to 6 is what we call detractors. So if you did it to 100 customers, 70% were promoters and 20% were detractors. That would say you take your detractors away from your promoters, you get a Net Promoter Score of 50. The goal is to be every year improving on your NPS, a really important yet very, very much underestimated metric. So that just gives you a bit of a heads up. What I'd like to do is just open it up to a Q&A for anyone on the call who would like to ask me any questions around that topic. I'm here to help. This is an English-speaking audience, is it not?
One question for you, Peter.
Yeah, go Ben.
How do you make sure you're not trying to track and measure too many?
Elaborate. Too many customers?
I mean, if you look at this graph here, right, I think what I've got under each one of these is another 5 or 10 different data points and capture points and management and that sort of thing. Once again, just my experience is keeping it simpler is better. Mm-hmm. How do you go about defining what are the more important ones for your business?
Yeah, I think I had to go about defining what is important for you. Well, I think it's about understanding what you're looking to achieve. All of those metrics are driven to achieve different outcomes. So that's why I wanted to give you as broad a cross section as I possibly could. For example, if customer retention is not important to you, not you personally, Ben, but to a company, if it is all about finding new businesses, talking about NPS score or lifetime value of a customer would be absolutely irrelevant. So it's about understanding what is your business strategy, what are you actually trying to achieve, and what are the definitive metrics that you'll need to achieve that. Does that make sense to you?
Kind of, but they're all really important, right?
well, not really. It's not actually. It's not right. It's like if finding new customers is if retaining customers is not important to a business, as an example, talking about a Net Promoter Score would be pretty irrelevant, I would think, in my view. Yes? No?
No, because most business should grow by word of mouth alone, I would have thought. So that's, well, wouldn't Net Promoter Score, whether it's
I beg it. I didn't mean Net Promoter Score. I meant retain customer, the customer retention or attrition is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, my apologies. Sorry, I just had MPS on my
Sorry.
mind.
Yeah. So
No. So that would be one example. Typically, almost every decent CRM should be able to measure, or would measure, most of these with very, very limited input if you've got a team that's has embraced the CRM take up. Now, the Net Promoter Score, it won't, but if you looked at team quota, individual quota, conversion rate, activity, all of those things should be in your CRM. And if they're not in your CRM, they certainly should be in some sort of a sales plan.
Yeah.
If you want to have a yarn offline, Ben, I'm more than happy to organise some time, buddy. Because I'm trying to answer this for the audience, which is generic as I possibly can. I know your business, and I know that there would be some other specifics that would be valuable. So happy to do that, mate.
Yeah, cool. Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So coming up in the chat box now is a link to, or it's in there, is a link to, if you've enjoyed this or you feel that you'd like to learn anything more, my intent on all of these lunch and learns is to give. So if you were to click on that link, you will find a plethora of intel around sales, all things sales, that it's clearly headed, and should there be something there that you can get some value at no investment, I'd really like to offer it to you. So I'll leave that up there. And as I said, it's in the link there. You can click it and join us. And if there's no other questions, I'd like to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of talking to you. Finally, again, if anyone on this call would like to just contact me directly, that's the details. Happy to allocate some time and see if I can help. So on the back of that, thanks again for your attendance, and good selling. Talk to you next time.